reflecting a little bit on yesterday, Kristen spoke about her journey of embracing and celebrating all of the identities we carry, as well as acknowledging and reminding ourselves what we love about ourselves out loud and living our lives loud exactly as we are. So in this next workshop, the lovely Leah Garlock, a Korean American adoptee and experienced designer and illustrator and fellow alumni of my university, Syracuse University, will be touching on similar themes, focusing on self-love and identity through art and outside and inside creativity as self-expression. So please help me in welcoming Leah, who is tuning in from New York. Yay! Woo!
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Awesome,
Yep.
Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen, and if someone just can like, ooh, that is not what I want to do. Make sure that you'll be able to see me all right. So let me just do that. Oops, and present. Are we good? Can you see me? Okay, great. So hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And so this presentation is called Outside and Inside, and we're going to use creativity as a form of self-expression. So in terms of, I guess, like I know you might have probably read the brief and bio. Am I okay? Can you hear me, Allie? I'm good? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So adoption, like Ali said, is something that, you know, connects us all, but as individuals, we all have our own unique experiences, backgrounds, life stories. So today we're going to be using creativity as a form of self-expression to kind of help us process and celebrate those unique identities. So as an overview, we're going to do a brief presentation, then we're going to get your supplies ready because we're going to be jumping straight in and doing some exercises, and then we're going to break out into breakout rooms and then wrap up with some Q&A and some closing thoughts. So a little bit about me. As you can see, I'm wearing a mask because I'm currently in a library. I'm actually also on vacation in the Adirondack Mountains. My name is Leah, and I go by she, her, hers pronouns. As Ali said, I'm a Korean American adoptee, and I grew up in Rochester, New York, and I was previously living in New York City, but I'm actually planning on moving to Korea in January, so that's kind of where I'm at right now, in between New York and Rochester. And so as an experience designer, for me, I really love storytelling and using that as like a mode of self-expression and healing, especially as an adoptee. It's helped me process a lot of my own identity and also get to know other people's cultures, things like that through the work that I do. Before we begin, I'm actually going to just have us all ground ourselves, you know, wherever we're at and whatever scenario we come into today. So if you'd like to turn off your screens for this, you can. It's only going to be a few minutes. If you don't, that's totally fine. But what I'm going to ask you to do is just get in a comfortable position first before we start. And this might be a little awkward, so bear with me. But what I'd like you to do is just kind of like roll your shoulders back. I know there's like a lot of tension in our shoulders, and just sit up straight if you can. And, you know, allow your hands just to like rest in place wherever they're at. And so before we get grounded in ourselves and with each other, we're going to get grounded, you know, where we're at right now. So right now I'm joining you from the ancestral homeland of the Mohawk people, aka the Adirondacks. And I want to respect and give gratitude to the stewards of this land. And as I give this acknowledgement, I ask you to kind of acknowledge the land you live on as well. And just thank you so much for holding space. And we're going to go through a few grounding breaths in order to sort of start this conversation off. Sorry, I'm holding two computers right now. So again, like I said, go ahead and get yourself nice and comfortable, and then put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly if that feels comfortable. And then right now, what I ask you to do is just close your eyes. So if you could just close your eyes, allow your eyes to soften. If you don't want to close your eyes, that's fine. Just do a gentle glaze and just start taking some deep breaths in and out, and just feel your body's natural rhythms. So feel your heartbeat, feel it flow in through you. Now feel your belly rise and fall. So just focus on your breath a little bit more and take some deep breaths to the deepest parts of yourself. So I'm going to ask you to breathe in. So take a deep breath in. And then on your next exhale, just push all of the air as much as possible out. And we're going to take 4 big breaths before we start. So first one, in through your nose. Deep breath in, down your throat, through your chest, into your belly, and then out through your mouth. Breathe out. Another one, breathe in. Breathe out. One more, breathe in. Breathe out. And the last one, I want you to take the biggest breath, maybe the deepest breath that you've taken all day. Breathe in and breathe out. And just return to your natural rhythms. Just going to give you gratitude for your heart for beating, for your body for showing up, and we're going to jump right in. I like to do this before like any sort of workshop because I know we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics, and it's kind of nice to ground ourselves in the same spot. So today, a lot of us might not be, professional illustrators. I understand that. I'm a UX designer, so I know we come back from various backgrounds in terms of our creative levels. But creativity is a lot more than, just drawing well or being able to paint. You can be creative when you like work out, for example, and you think of ways to kind of express yourself, express your emotions and your movements, or even through dancing. And so there's a lot of different forms of art and a lot of forms of self-expression where we can ourselves be creative, but we don't necessarily have to apply that to, more traditional mediums. So that's just something I want you to think about as you're doing some of these exercises. You might not come in from an art background, but that's totally okay. So I'm going to put up a poll, and we're going to talk about the word identity. So just thinking about this word identity, just, the first thing that comes into your head, you can either type it into the chat. The poll is going to come on screen, and I just want to ask you, what does this word mean to you? Cool. And like I said, if you, don't see your answer there, that's totally fine. Feel free to shout it out in the chat. That's really cool too. But yeah, it looks like a lot of you have already answered. So I guess this is a question that I kind of like to pose because, a lot of the artwork and creative expression that I do comes from understanding who I am as an adoptee, as a human being, as, a person in general. So what I would like you to do in the next, if you have a paper and pen nearby, the next thing I'd like you to do is, I'm going to end the poll. And the next thing I'd like you to do, yeah, so it looks like a lot of us said, how we describe or define ourselves to others. That's definitely, I guess, how I would use it too. We also, how we relate to our culture, ethnicity, gender, etc. So kind of all of those are acceptable answers. The trick was that there is no right or wrong answer. So it's cool. Thank you for voting and sharing your results. So like I was saying, what I would like you to do now is we have this outside identity. So when people see us, before they even get to know us, they're going to see what they see on the outside, and that's just a given. So the question is, when people see you, so when they see you, when they meet you for the first time, how do you personally want them to see you? So for example, when someone sees me, I might want them to see that, that I'm happy, that I'm smiling, things like that. So just write down 3 words. They don't have to be perfect, just the right first thing that comes to your head. And just reflect a little bit on what you would want someone to see you as. And then when you're done with that, just give a little thumbs up in the chat so we can move on to the next one. Great. Cool. Okay, even if you're not done, that's totally fine. Just sit on that answer a little bit more. It's going to come in handy as we're continuing on. So the next word is introspection. So we're going to throw up another poll on the screen. I know this is a pretty big word. It's sometimes a little vulnerable and embarrassing to, sit with our thoughts and be super in our heads. I'm in my head a lot, I know that personally, but I'm just curious what you think about the word introspection. So we're going to throw that poll on the screen. You're going to see it in a couple seconds. So the way I personally define it is, anything that allows us to kind of inside our minds and our bodies, just, listening to our thoughts and ideas, listening to our maybe our feelings. So, and being able to process all of those, and all of those happen kind of internally inside of our minds and our bodies. And from that, we kind of can develop ideas and, thoughts about the world. And it really helps us to kind of process who we are too. So the poll is going to have some of those. Again, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm just curious to hear what the word means to you first. Cool. I like that no one has overthinking. That's one person. Nice. That's definitely me. Awesome. Cool. And if you have another definition, that's totally fine. You can put that in the chat if you're comfortable, or you don't have to. But like I said, there's no wrong or right answer. We all have our own definitions for things, especially if they mean a lot to us in different ways. So yeah, like I said, it looks like a lot of you put down knowing how we feel and why. That's a really good one. I think sometimes that's a little different, than self-reflection, because it gets a little bit more to like the nitty-gritty and the meat of, who we are, as well as processing our thoughts. So that's really awesome. So I'm going to end this poll. And the next question I'm going to have you ask, I'm going to share the results. Okay, so from here, we have our inside identities. So we just discussed, our identity on the outside very briefly, like what do we want people to see when they're seeing us on the outside? But as people get to know us, our close family, our friends, people that we love, our identities start to shift and change. We might be more vulnerable with them and might want to express different things. So when you become friends with someone, you answer the question, I want them to see me as blank, blank, and blank. So for me, when someone really gets to know me, I want them to see me as someone who's really compassionate, maybe someone who really puts her all into things and really cares about what they're doing. So I'm going to give you a few moments to answer that question. Nice. Okay. So again, even if you're not done, that's totally fine. These are just prompts to get us thinking. Now we're going to talk about self-love. So self-love is like this trending term. A lot of us hear us like, oh, we need to practice self-love. We need to exercise. We need to work out. We need to do all these things that take care of ourselves. But self-love is really, for me at least, like a very individual practice. So we're going to put the next poll. And I'm just really curious, like what self-love means to you. Again, if you don't see the answer there, drop it in the chat because I'd love to read it. So someone could put up the next poll for me. That would be great. And we're just going to ask, what does the word self-love mean to you? So like I said, some people think it's working out, maybe writing. You guys look at the answers. Oh, a lot of variety here. Cool. I know for me personally, I know a lot of you put self-care rituals. Mine looks like, face masks, maybe doing my nails or just like sitting out, like literally doing nothing and sleeping. Some of you said creating things. That's really cool. I definitely do that. To be honest, as I was making this poll, I actually do all of these things in my self-care rituals. But, like I said, there's no wrong or right answer. I think oftentimes we have this idea, a definition of like how we're supposed to be practicing self-love. But what's really great is as individuals, we kind of all have our own practice. So, as we're reflecting on, someone could share those results with everyone. That would be great. So the next question is, I'm going to have you write down 5 things that you love about yourself. Sometimes that can be really hard, but, there's things as easy as like, oh, I really like my hair today. Or I really like, the way I laugh is really funny. So they can be super simple, super deep, totally up to you. Just write down 5 things. And when you're done, just give me a thumbs up so I can see you. Cool. Looks like some of you already done. Nice. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. I know some people might need more time. Okay, so again, even if you're not done, just have that down on a piece of paper. All these things are really great just to sort of get jumped into the creative activity that we're going to do. So the next thing, oops. Okay, so what's the point? Essentially, as adoptees, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but, in my personal experiences, it can be really easy to kind of feel in limbo, either between cultures, with your families, with your friends. And identity sometimes can get really confusing, as we're trying to figure ourselves out, and growing up is like a part of that process. So being able to tap into those 3 words that we talked about, identity, really taking time to be introspective, self-reflect, allow time to practice self-love, allows this process of figuring out who we are and being able to find our voice. And it gives us a better sense of, ourselves as we do that, and also more confidence over time. So taking time to sort of self-reflect on those 3 words is really important to expressing who we are. I think Lizzo is one of the best people when it comes to, self-love. I really put out her quotes. Amazing. So yeah, that's just like some things that I want you to think about, because the exercise that we're going to do is going to kind of tap in deeper to that. So now that we're kind of on the surface level of, understanding identity, at least like the definitions of it, we're going to dive into more internally what that means for us. So I'm going to jump to the next slide. So the question here is, how can we tap into our creativity to express and explore identities? So like I said, we're going to need paper, coloring tools, pictures of ourselves, and or a mirror. And the first activity that we're going to do is, we're going back to the start. Like, what does your identity look on the outside? We're going to take 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, just given time, to just create a line portrait. And if you don't know what that is, that's totally fine. It's essentially the outline of your face, your facial features, your nose. I did a quick one here just to give an example. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're not an artist, you can trace your face on paper, totally fine. Just do the best job that you can, because this is going to come in handy for the next exercise. So I'm going to give you about, let's say, 5 minutes for this, maybe 5 or 6 minutes, just to keep track of time. And feel free to take your screens on your videos.
Also, Leah, don't feel like you need to rush too much either.
Okay.
Because
cool.
We have built-in buffer time too, so.
Okay, good to know. So how about we'll take the full 10 minutes and then.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I love the advice that someone gave, using your flashlight to help you trace. That's really brilliant. To answer your question, you can do the outline in color if you want, but don't color in your face quite yet. We're going to get to that in a second. So just the outline, just your eyes, nose, mouth. If you don't want to have a mouth or a nose, that's cool too. But yeah, try your best. No worries if it's not perfect.
Okay, I think we have 1 more minute.
Okay, great. Good job, everyone. I know drawing faces can be really hard. I personally find it hard, but yeah, I hear you. So if you look kind of funky, no worries. It's more about the inside that counts, right? Okay, so as we're wrapping up, I'm going to ask one of you to message one of the leaders. If you feel comfortable sharing your line drawing, that would be great. I'm going to show some of them at the end. No pressure, absolutely no pressure, but if you want to, just message one of your leaders, Ali, anybody. And great, we're going to move on to the next thing. So I physically can't do this because I am in a library, but if you want to get up, what I'm going to ask you to do, I know we all were kind of sitting in place for 10 minutes straight. Just literally get up and wiggle. And I'm just going to like shimmy shammy. You have like, I'm going to count down. So we have like 10 seconds. I know it's really awkward, but sometimes to get our creative juices flowing, it's just nice to wiggle, a little wiggle. 5 more seconds of wiggling, 8 more seconds. If you don't want to wiggle, that's fine. Wiggle in your mind. 6 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's get back jumping in right now. Cool. So all of us should have our line drawings. Again, you don't have to be an artist. This is more about like self-reflection, but the exercise is good to kind of get us to think about what we look like on the outside, how we are perceived, and also, how we feel deep down on the inside, because both of those are important. So the next thing we're going to do is start to color it in. So someone asked about coloring in. That's a great question. We're going to actually use color. So instead of like, see how my hair is black, sometimes it's brown. I have like some red on my eyes. We're not going to do realistic coloring. What we're going to do is actually something a little bit more abstract, but hopefully just as fun. So now we're going to reflect on the identity on our inside, and we're not going to have to worry about drawing intestines, none of that. It's more about our feelings, actually. So let's get started, and we're going to jump right into that right now. So for our eyes, a lot of people say that eyes are like sort of the windows to our soul. So people see us through our eyes, all of the like romantic, cheesy movies out there, just kidding, for anyone who likes that sort of thing. So choose your favorite color, or like how you personally feel on the inside. So I chose like a green teal because I, like to have like this positive energy. I have a lot of energy sometimes, can be a little crazy. So, whatever color evokes who you are, how you feel about yourself, maybe not in all moments, but in most moments, in some moments, whatever moments you want. And then also if you are having trouble with that, just choose your favorite color, totally fine. So just take a couple moments when you're done with that. Just give me a thumbs up. Also, the coloring doesn't have to be super perfect. You don't have to shade in. This is more to get you kind of like think about a little bit more about how we're feeling deep down in our souls. Nice. Red and purple. I'm about that too. Also, you have arts in your name, which is pretty awesome. So thumbs up. Great. And when we're done with that, we're going to move on to the next one. So I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to wrap up. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just to start to use color as a deeper form of self-reflection. German, nice. I actually know a little German too, but my parents are actually Italian. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one. So now for our eyebrows. I don't know about you, but mine are generally really just a hot mess. Right now, they're actually pretty good. But the eyebrows that we have like frame our face. And in this sense, what I would like you to think about, is like how, how we see the world is sort of perceived through the framing, or like our point of view. So if we're to imagine our eyebrows almost as the frame of which we like perceive the world, how do you personally feel about your communities? So choose a color that represents, your community. It could represent, the world in general. I chose like a bright orange because my community is very energetic. All the people that I have in my life are pretty positive. They're also really warm and compassionate. So choose a color that sort of represents how you feel about the world, your community, your family even. And I know I'm asking you to dive in pretty abstract, but hopefully it'll all make sense at the end. So a few minutes for that. And again, you're choosing a color represent your community, your family, your world, whatever you want. A few more seconds. If you're all done, just give me a thumbs up. Nice, nice. As I was doing this, I was like, oh, my face is like all the colors of the rainbow right now, but it's pretty funky. Okay, we're gonna go into the next one. So, oh, someone has no eyebrows. Sorry to hear that. Rainbow face, yes, all about that. Okay, now for the next one, our nose. So it looks like I have a cold. I don't have a cold right now, but our noses are what allow us, if we think about them sort of metaphorically, to breathe in the array of smells. So to breathe in all the wonderful things that we sort of experience in the world. So, as we take in certain things in our own personality, what I'd like you guys to use this color as a reflection of the things that you really care about. So what are your passions, your purpose, your drive? How would you contextualize that if that was a color? And I know that might be pretty hard. So an example that I have is, purple is such a royal, deep color. The things I care about are on like a really deep level. So that's how I've like sort of used that color to represent that. But it can be anything for you. It doesn't have to be purple. Yay, someone else loves purple. But whatever color is used to represent, your hobbies, your purpose, the things that you care about. Let's color in our nose with the purple or whatever color you want. You can take a few minutes for that. And again, I shaded mine a bit. You don't have to shade yours. If you just want to color it as best you can, that is totally all right. Take a few more minutes and you can get caught up if you still need to work on the rest of your face. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Ears. Okay, so my ears, I don't know about you, they're a little funky. My ears are also always behind my hair, so they kind of blend in together. It was actually really interesting as I was doing this. The color that I wanted to use for my ears was also the color for my hair. So you might actually start to find that you're using very similar colors. And just like take note of that, and for your breakout room discussions, that might be something you might want to talk about, bring up, but I thought that was personally really interesting for me. So anyways, our ears, like it says on the screen, are sort of what allows us to like listen to ourselves. So internally, that through our minds, more as like a symbolic point of view for ears, but it also more literally helps us to take in the environment. And both understanding ourselves and the outside environment, all those things combined, really help us give us a sense of who we are, where our place is in the world, and the communities that we enter, the privileges we might have in certain spaces and not in certain spaces. So anyways, ears are sort of symbolic of all those things that we, the sounds and absorbing all that energy. So what I'd like you to do is to color in your ears a color that represents your hopes and dreams. So slightly different than your purpose. Your purpose might be your hope and your dream, but my dream right now is to move to Korea. So what does that look like as a color? What are your hopes for the future? When you go back to school, hopefully whenever that is. What are your hopes for, you know, when you graduate from high school, college? What does that color look like for you? And again, I have mine blue. You can do whatever you want. And no worries if you're just getting to coloring. Can fill you in. So a few moments for that, and then we're gonna keep right on chugging across our face. As we're doing this, if you feel comfortable, you can also type in like what colors you're using, just out of curiosity. Love to see kind of what people are doing for their mouth, their ears, their nose. Again, no pressure, but if you finish early, you can type that in the chat. Orange ears, nice. Mint, ooh, I like mint. Yellow, nice, nice. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next body part. Feel free to keep putting your answers in the chat. I love that. So now we're gonna move down to our mouth. I know some of us might not have a nose or mouth in our drawings. You know, you can just kind of pretend that you have one for now and just go along with the exercise. But our mouths are what we use to sort of speak our truth. So we use to speak our stories, or it's used to communicate. Just super, super like important in terms of, you know, just being able to communicate in general. A lot of what we do is through our body, but our mouth really helps us go further than that. So what I'd like you to do is for your mouth specifically, and I know this is going to be a little weird, but if someone were to write a biography about you, or if you were to write a memoir or an autobiography about yourself, what would the front color of that, the cover page, what would you want that color to be? So right now, mine is kind of like a mint color. Someone said maybe a teal. I want my cover, my autobiography, to be this color. So choose a color for that. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just the color represent your future book, which I bet none of you thought you would write today. And again, feel free to pop your answers in the chat. No, squad. Nice. Okay, so when you're done, I know I'm moving along pretty quickly, but it's totally fine if you need more time. Magenta, ooh, that's cool. That's like a step up from pink. I love all these colors. It's really great to see kind of, you know, what we all do. Again, there's no wrong color to choose from, so it's nice to see what y'all are doing. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next slide. And again, I know if you need more time, we're gonna, you can work on it a little later. That's totally fine. So now we're gonna work on, I don't know, maybe you didn't put this in your drawing. If you don't, again, this is where you can draw it in now real quick. I won't tell anyone. You draw your neck if you don't have it, and your shoulders. So I don't know about you, but when I'm really stressed and like have a lot of work day, I work on my computer a lot as an illustrator and as a designer. I'm like hunched over all the time. This might be you, you know, on your Zoom calls at school or whatever. So our necks and shoulders and physically in our body, which is actually really interesting, is where we store a lot of that stress. So a lot of that tension and stress come here. And I know it might be weird to think about, you know, stress and anxiety and tension and all these like sort of quote unquote bad emotions when we're thinking about self-expression and diving into, you know, who we are. But I think it's really important, and I know it can be either a mixture of uncomfortable or painful or like really vulnerable to think about it that way. But, you know, processing those negative emotions, how we feel, it really helps us to really better understand ourselves. And if we're able to do that in a way that's healthy for us and process, it's really ultimately going to give us a really strong, powerful voice, because those are stories and things that we make us individuals and, you know, make our stories unique compared to others. So even a place for those emotions, those are important to and how we define ourselves and process and experience the world. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to draw that color or color in that color that represents your tension, your stress. What do you feel when you're like feeling all these emotions? And again, like, it doesn't have to be pretty. Sometimes emotions aren't, and that's totally okay. All of it's valid. So here you can see I colored mine red. Yours can be green. Whatever color represents stress or anxiety to you. Also, I forgot to mention, but if you don't have color, that's fine. You can start to see in my sort of neck, shoulder area, I'm starting to use a little pattern. You can use pattern, anything else you want to define the different areas of your face. So if maybe anxiety to you is really jaggedy, you can sort of add in that as you go along. Or if you finish and you have more time, you can start to think about that too. Great. So we're going to wrap that up real quick. And again, feel free to go back to it. There is no rush there. I like how someone's doing half and half. That's really cool. It's a nice idea. So the next one I'm going to do is our hair. So hair is generally, at least for me, how I used to express myself. Right now it's not colored, but it normally is. This is actually the first time it's been natural in a long, long time. But hair can be a fun way to express our personalities. So I want you to choose a color or pattern, whatever you have at your availability, to represent your personality. So if your personality was a color, what would it be? Yes, totally agree with that. Your hair holds beauty without color too. So if you don't want to use color, that's cool. I love that. It's a really beautiful. You look like a clown? Oh no. That's okay. It's going to be inspiration for your Halloween costume. This is the blueprint of it right now. Okay, so I know some of us might not all be done. That's totally fine. But just something interesting that I was noticing as I was doing this is that the things that like stress me out are also in the sort of the red tension area are also the things that how I view my community, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you're going to start to see colors in your self-portraits that might start to overlap, like you might use blue in two places or whatever. So I thought that was really interesting because it's sometimes the things I really care about also give me a lot of stress because I'm really maybe trying to do a lot for them, other people, or, you know, maybe the world, even though I really care about it, might be full a lot of things, like a lot of things out there. So it'll be interesting to sort of note what colors are the same and why. So that's also the same for kind of like my personality and my idea for like my memoir being like this like teal. You can kind of see how colors start to overlap. So as we're kind of going through this, you can really start to see, you know, how certain parts of ourselves kind of all generally connect. And, you know, these colors, like obviously, I mean, I'm just looking at all of us in general as an overview. I don't think we have blue or purple noses. If you do, that's totally cool. But these are the colors that represent, you know, deep down who we are on the inside. And, you know, someone's going to see us on the outside and they're going to maybe make their assumptions, have their biases or whatever, but deep down the inside, that is ours, that is our own. No one can take that from us. And, you know, it's constantly evolving and that's totally okay. But yeah, these are the colors that represent who you are on the inside. So this is how you process things, how you see things, what you care about. All of those are uniquely yours. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to dive into our breakout rooms. So I would like you to start to think about that a little bit deeper. So your outside identity, you know, people might see me as Asian, but, you know, I grew up in a very Italian mixed household. I grew up in a city, so it was very culturally diverse. I know some of you might be in different backgrounds, and that's totally fine. But like all these things are what people perceive on the outside. And it took me a really long time to start to realize that, like, well, yes, that's important. And I'm growing into myself and loving myself and practicing self-love and introspection. You know, a lot of the things that really matter to me are on the inside. So, and a lot of those things people don't get to see, like they're never going to see your red nose, and, you know, unless they really get to know you. So the more you think about that, the more you're kind of able to like be more self-loving with both of those halves of yourself, the more you're able to find your voice and express. So in your breakout rooms, the leaders are going to split you up. I have some sort of facilitating questions for them to ask you to sort of think about this a little bit more. But let's take time to really process like why we chose these colors, what they mean to us, and go a little bit deeper into that. So if you could break out into rooms, and I might jump in between rooms, but I don't want to necessarily disrupt the flow. And I know sometimes conversations can be vulnerable, so I'm totally okay with not jumping in. But if there's any rooms that you'd like me to jump, you can give a flag. But again, there's questions that I sent the facilitators, and start to think about why you chose those colors more deeply. We're going to reflect on that a bit and then come back into the main group.
Leah, real fast,
Yep.
oh, would you like 10 or 15 minutes for the rooms?
Let's take 10 minutes for this.
10 minutes? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you all had some wonderful conversations. Thank you all for coming back. It means I'm doing my job well. Oops, I keep doing that. 1 second. Okay. Great. So now we're kind of just wrap things up, but also kind of just wanted to talk about, how this all connects. And I shared some of this within our individual breakout rooms, but I'm curious to understand, I guess, what we learned and explored and discovered through this activity. Was there anything that sort of jumped out to you or surprised you? You can write it in the chat. You can say it out loud really quickly. If not, that's totally cool. But yeah, anyone want to sort of share more broadly, I guess, what they discovered about their self-portraits? I'm gonna open the chat again. Yeah, a lot of people had orange or red necks. That was something I thought was really interesting. Is a lot of, like, for me, when I think about stress, I think about like a really intense color, and red is one of the most like pigmented, like bright color. It can be really dark and can be really light, can be all these things, but whenever it is, it's like really intense. So that's really interesting. Yeah, I like that. So colors can mean different things for individuals. That is actually something, as I was sort of making this workshop, and some piece of advice someone gave me is like, you might see green as something that's really energetic, or I might see it that way, but someone else might see it completely different. And I think that's really interesting about, colors in general, and also just another form of self-expression. When I put on this outfit and I wear it one way, it might mean something completely different to you. And, that's okay, because we're all expressing ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, and I think someone else mentioned, sometimes, like, for our personality and our hair, we can have multiple colors that sort of represent, how we feel about our personality, how we feel about our inside. And I think that's what's really beautiful too. I know it's kind of hard maybe to think of one color, but if you use multiple colors, that's totally fine too. We all have all of those colors inside of us in different ways, symbolically. So nice. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about that. Oh, I like this, eyebrows. It is kind of hard to define our community. I think I was having some trouble last night, like as I was doing the exercise too, like what color really represents my community. And so these mixtures of colors definitely represent different things. So yeah, I love hearing all these insights. So here are 2 blank spots. They're blank for a reason. Some of you have shared your drawings with us, which is really great. If y'all feel comfortable, we'd love to share them after this. But yeah, I'm just really grateful that you all participated in sort of sharing your portraits with me so I can see them later, share them with others. But what I think is really cool, like someone said, is that each color sort of represents different things to each of us. So, taking some time to reflect on like our outside and inside, personalities, how we feel about ourselves. Give me 1 second. There's a lot of things on. Okay. So on the outside, our identities can grow all the time. Like we're never stagnant. Like no matter what anyone tells us, we are never stagnant to sort of one identity. We're always constantly moving and constantly able to sort of grow and change over time. And so our colors right now, they might be blue, orange, purple, whatever. Over time, sorry about that, they can be a huge array of different things. And so it would be really cool to, if you're to do this exercise in the future, your colors might shift, and that will be a cool point of discussion. But anyways, the point is that, like, we're perceived as one thing as adoptees or for ourselves, but when we sort of self-accept, like, who we are on the inside and allow that to become part of our outside identity, both of those things in harmony really allow us to, find our own unique voice. So that ties into the next slide. So as adoptees, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I am in a lot of different adoptee groups, in New York, back home in Rochester. I had my own adoptee camp growing up, and it was always really amazing because I felt like I could connect to someone right off the bat because they were adopted. But what I also realized over time too is that a lot of us are really different. We come from our own very different backgrounds, families, personalities, and that's totally okay. So, just because we're adopted doesn't mean that's like the only point of connection, where there's going to be more, or there might not be any, and that's fine too. But the point is that, like, no matter what any of us are like told from anyone else in our communities, our families, our friends, we are the ones to define what our identity means. And that might not even include adoption, and that's totally cool. But at the end of the day, like, our identity is really kind of born from, who we are as people. And for me, as an adoptee, it took time for me to figure out who I am. I'm still doing that. I'm still in the process. But, this picture here is when I was at my Korean camp. That really helped me figure out who I am. But over time, I took a break from being the whole Korean adoptee thing. And then later on, this is a picture in New York at one of the cultural centers. I really started to embrace that more. And again, like you don't have to feel like you have to do that, but I think it's really interesting to delve into that. And you know, if you're an artist or a creative or a scientist or whatever, like our identities are who we are, and no one can take that away from us. So, oh, nice. Yeah, and I guess the last thing to mention is that we are all amazing and we're still growing. And, you know, it takes time to figure out who we really are, and that's okay. We don't have to have it figured out right now, right this minute. I know there's questions that made us have to sort of think about that, but we're all still growing, and, you know, it's going to be a continual process. It's never going to be about the destination. It's going to be kind of about the journey. And I guess the reason why I included this picture is that, again, like I said, it took me a long time to really fully like step into like being immersed in adoptee world like all the time. And we might not want to do that for ourselves, but this picture for me represents kind of like, you know, a triumphant moment for me as a person to be able to be like, yeah, I claim this as who I am. And so for you, that might like completely different. And that's totally cool. But yeah, at the end of the day, we are still all growing and learning and becoming who we are. Yes. Love everyone's souls here. Me too. Thank you for sharing that. And I really love this quote. It's really powerful. And, you know, I think it really gives me a lot of sort of courage and, you know, allows me to feel validated in where I'm at right now. But it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. It's going to take a lot of work and it's going to be hard sometimes, but, you know, it takes a lot of courage to really fully embrace our own identities, the outside ones, the inside ones, to find connections between the two and to really make that our own. And all of you doing that right now, in whatever capacity that looks like, even if you're like still confused and like everything's you know, you're doing an amazing job. And I just want to congratulate you all for, you know, showing up and just being yourselves and, you know, trying to be yourselves. So a lot of courage and vulnerability and amazingness goes into that. So you are all amazing. And great, that is my presentation. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed coloring your faces. Feel free to reach out to me. I have my Instagram and my email here. I am on vacation right now, but I promise I will get back to you. And I'm really good. Thank you, Allie and Amy and everyone on the team for allowing me to speak. So thank you.
Can we have a round of applause for Leah? Yay! Leah, thank you so much, Leah.
Woo!
You
got
the
best.
And actually, can we take, you know we love group photos. Can everyone hold up their portraits and we can take a group photo, kind of like a messy collage, beautiful messy collage. Oh, I see people coming on screen. Hello, everyone. Yes. Right. 1, 2, 3, page 1. And then 1, 2, 3, page 2. Yay! Awesome work, everyone.
Thank you.
Great job.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Leah, for such a wonderful workshop.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your vacation.
No worries.
We really appreciate it.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to head out, but enjoy the rest of your camp. And it was so great talking to some of you. And again, feel free to reach out. I will do my best to get back to you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yay.